Hello, friends. Welcome to Feeling This Life. We're a family support podcast that dives deep into the triumphs, challenges, and strategies that are part of the lives of those who care for children with blindness and visual impairments. I'm Paige Maynard, and I'm a teacher of the visually impaired and an early interventionist at VIPS, Visually Impaired Preschool Services.
And I'm Dr. Cathy Smith, and I also have been a teacher of students with visual impairment for many years, and now I am the Director of Research at Anchor Center for Blind Children.
I am jcastenir, and I am the Family Services Coordinator at VIPS. I am the mother of 3 girls, and my youngest has a visual impairment.
Hi everyone! I wanted to jump in to let you know that today's episode is a little bit different than some of the other things that we have done on this podcast before. We hosted 2 of our families and had a game show together. It was so much fun to record and has been so much fun to edit. So if this is something that you enjoy, please let us know and maybe we can do something like this in the future. Enjoy! So welcome everybody to the Feeling This Life Great IDEA game show. I'm so excited to be here with you all today. And part of the reason why we're doing this game show today is that sometimes transitions and IDEA and advocacy can be kind of a sensitive topic, and sometimes it's one that can feel intimidating to you as a family. So as part of today's episode, we hope to make it more accessible so that when transition times do come, and those times come where you need to advocate and speak up for your child, you will have already had a positive experience with learning about your rights, about special education law, so that you can be your kid's best advocate. So I am going to introduce today's contestants on this game show. And first I have with me Megan Kuussalo. So Megan, tell us about yourself and tell us about who you're playing for today.
Hi, I'm Megan Kuussalo. I'm Finn Kuussalo and Elliot Kuussalo's mom, twin mom, and we've been going to VIPS. They started in the 2-year-old classroom, and now they're in preschool. And we love it.
All right.
Glad to be here.
Yay. And our other contestant today is Sonnie. And Sonnie, I don't remember your last name. Sorry. Tell us your first and last name and who you're playing for.
My name is Sonnie Anderson, and I'm here playing for my twin boys, Kingston and Castleman. They also have been in the VIPS program from 2-year-old program, and now are currently in the preschool program.
Awesome. Well, it's good that you all are both here today. And we also have an expert today who's shaking her head no, but I really think that she is an expert, Cathy Mullen. And Cathy, I'll let you tell everyone about yourself.
Sure. I'm Cathy Mullen, and I have the honor of serving the VIPS community as the Director of Education. And given that we provide services all across Kentucky and all across Indiana, we love having our preschool families here with us, but that is really only about 6 or 7% of what we do agency-wide within our preschool.
All right, thanks. And Cathy is going to give us some expertise after we go through each one of the questions. And she's still shaking her head, but she is an expert.
She's making me nervous.
You got it.
Okay, so here's the rules of the game. So I'm going to ask you a question about some of the terms or abbreviations or provisions made under IDEA, and that might sound a little bit scary, but really it's all good because we're all here to learn today. And so you each have a dry erase board, and you're going to get to write your guess or your answer on your board, and then we're going to reveal our answers, and a correct answer gets a point. But if you don't know an answer anyway, and I can award points for creative answers. So if you can really think of something cute or jazzy, that would be great. And the contestant with the most points at the end of the game will receive this set of Braille accessible Uno cards.
Nice.
So I'll set them right here. You can be watching them, so everyone can get them. And there's going to be 10 questions. All right, are you ready?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so today's episode is all about IDEA. So what does IDEA stand for?
Really should have studied for this. It's like the most easy question, but I'm pretty sure I'm not positive that I got this right.
I put Individual Development Education Act.
All right, and Megan, what do you have?
Individuals with Disability Education Act.
And Megan
Hey,
gets
she
it.
there we go.
Study.
Yes, she
did.
I think it's really interesting that IDEA, the first time it was passed was in the 70s, as in 1970s. I think it was 1974 to be exact. But what I think is so interesting is it was a result of the civil rights laws that were passed in the 60s. And after they recognized the discrimination that was in place for people who were of different races, then they said, you know what, there's another group of people, the people with differences and abilities. So there was a huge march and a crawl, literally, because people with physical limitations crawled up the steps at Washington, D.C., crawled up the steps of the Capitol and protested until IDEA was passed for education, and that led to the American with Disabilities Act that was passed again in the 90s. So just a little tidbit of information.
Yeah, see, you are an expert. That was great. I always forget about that. I think there are pictures that I've seen, where like the people are like literally crawling up the steps. It's such
I've
a
never
powerful.
heard of that.
Very powerful,
Yes.
very powerful. And I just think the social justice vein in my soul loves that it's a result of civil rights, although it breaks my heart as well that we had to fight for civil rights all across the globe and all across the areas of abilities and racial issues. But can continue.
Yes. All right, let's move to question number 2.
Okay.
So IDEA has several sections, and each addresses a different facet of special education. And Sonnie just made a face that she is thinking. So how many subsections are there under IDEA? And I'm going to give you a hint. They all start with letters. So what letters kind of do they go through? You don't have to write the letters down, but sometimes that might jog your memory a little bit, if this is something you've ever heard before.
So the answer is a number.
The answer is a number.
Okay.
The IDEA.
We have unsure looks on our faces. All right, Sonnie, what do you
I
have?
have 3.
All right, and Megan?
5?
The answer
ding.
is there are 4.
Tiebreaker.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe we should split it and give you guys both a point. So
That sounds good.
Sonnie, here's
So
your
I
point.
get a point?
Yes.
At least I get one.
And
There you
Megan's
go.
point.
And what I think is crazy and so confusing when I study or when I talk about the parts of IDEA is that they went back and attached the letters, but they didn't necessarily go in the right order. So Part A of the Act is for just the general information to define what disabilities are. And then Part B is actually special education for kindergarten through age 21 for people with special needs. And then Part C backs up and goes to early intervention, the birth to 3-year-olds. So I think that's kind of crazy. And then Part D is how are we going to follow these laws? We better have something in place to look at accountability and compliance. So they kind of did it in a different order than my brain would have done it.
Yeah. And one of the things I think that is important why is that important to know is whenever your child is in early intervention, a lot of times that's just where your brain is and you're like, what on earth happens later? But it's all special education law, and kind of knowing how all those parts kind of like fit together, I feel like it's really important to know.
Yeah. And I think the other really important thing about Part C, looking at that birth to 3-year-old, and knowing that our brains here at VIPS are looking at that age group too, is that it's really been recognized that parents are the first teachers of the children who we serve, and so we need to help the parents. It's not to teach the kids, it's to help the parents teach their own children, because that's the natural order of things, that it should be the parents teaching their young children.
You guys ready for question number 3? So this is another abbreviations on IDEA ensures that children with disabilities have a right to FAPE. What does FAPE stand for?
She's gonna know this, and I have
I
have no idea.
She's using her speech therapist world.
Yeah. I'm not in the speech therapy world.
Hey, that is okay. And honestly, a lot of this is from Miss Paige when she grilled me before. She did
She
make me
grilled
study, or encourage that I look over it and really know my stuff.
Mhm.
And it did make me feel more confident going into all the meetings, because it is a little intimidating, like you said.
Yeah, I usually always try to do a visit before all my kids turn 3 to go through all of this information.
I
And
definitely
I
needed
really
that.
feel like it is helpful. Sometimes
Oh
it
my
can be a little
gosh,
dry, which
yes.
that's why we're doing this today. So
Yeah.
it's a little less dry for others, but
I've shared your
It-
PowerPoint with others to say, look, the Paige is a good idea here, folks.
Yeah, it definitely gave me more confidence. Like, okay, I am the advocate. I do know what I'm talking about enough to say what I think my child needs to
Mhm.
benefit. So,
Mhm. All right, you guys ready?
yes.
All right. Okay, Sonnie, let's hear from you.
I put fun and play education.
Oh, I love that.
That's
You
so
go,
cute.
girl.
Because I had no idea.
All right, Megan, what do you have?
Free, appropriate public education.
And the answer is free, appropriate public education. And Sonnie gets a point because that's what it ought to stand for, because it's
It's
cute.
good.
And Megan, here's your point.
Yes. And I think that one thing that we need to keep in mind as we move from the world of early intervention into public schools is that appropriate word, because that can be very different from one student to the next. What is the most appropriate? It might be the small classrooms that we offer here at VIPS in a private school that contracts with the public school system, or it might be that a child can really handle that classroom of 20 preschoolers, or it could be that the child needs a more of a medically based program where they have nurses and therapists in the classroom at all times with the children. So appropriate is a very individualized term, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Question number 4. The question is, children with disabilities can qualify for special education services under several categories. How many categories of eligibility are there under IDEA? All right, Sonnie, what'd you say?
I'm sticking with my 3.
No, lucky number 3. All right, Megan, what do you have?
11.
11. The correct answer is 13.
Oh,
man.
Yeah, so there's
Megan,
a
way to go.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kathy, can you tell us about those?
Yes, but I'm not going to name them.
Wow.
Maybe we'll put a link in show notes, and
That would be
we
good.
will
Good idea.
link all the different
That's
categories of
good.
eligibility.
I think for our audience, when we have meetings with school systems and they are trying to determine what areas need to be evaluated for one of our students, I just remind parents, vision, 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 because there might be an opportunity to say, oh, we're looking at this, and we're looking at this, and we're looking at this, but we don't really think vision impacts that. Oh, yes, it does. That is always the answer. Oh, yes, it does. So as we go into those meetings then to talk about eligibility, there are very specific guidelines for the categories, and then it might be at the end of the meeting or when they're determining eligibility that there are several categories that are identified as areas of needs for a student, and then the child might have a more general category of, I always think of 2, multiply handicapped or other health impairments. So the key is, though, that we are still saying, even though we're going with the multiple handicap or other health impairments, that we have qualified our students for vision services as well, so they do get those services from a certified teacher of the blind and visually impaired.
Yeah, I think that's good to think about too, like thinking about the vision piece of it, making
Yeah.
sure that we get that as well for our kids.
I also think, sorry, here I'll keep going. I think this is very interesting because that question really does deal with eligibility. And when we look at the qualifications for coming into early intervention programs such as First Steps, it's a little harder to qualify for those services than it is in public schools. That the qualifications of the acuity open the doors for many of our students. So don't be afraid, parents, that we have to do these assessments. It really is giving us a good picture of the needs, how we can address the needs of the student.
Because just visually impaired, is that one of the eligibility
Yes, it
categories?
is.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I.
So they can get those services from a teacher of the visually impaired. Now, to get orientation mobility services, that's a related service.
Uh-huh.
So they have to be getting, it doesn't have to necessarily be vision, but it has to be special education services from one of those other 12 categories.
And a kid can only qualify as one?
No.
No,
You
I
can
think
have-
they
no, no.
qualify for all
Two.
12.
You can qualify for, I don't know that you can qualify for all 12.
All 13.
All
Or 13, I mean.
All 13.
Yes,
Sorry.
13.
Look,
Looking
I
at
was
that.
saying the wrong answer.
It would be very hard to qualify
Yeah.
for all 13, but you can qualify for multiple, and that's when they'll put you in that category of multiple. It can be a physical, it can be communication, it can be sensory deprivation, blindness, deaf, hard of hearing, so we can just go on and on.
I just remember going back and forth in Finn's meeting about
Oh,
like
yeah.
developmental delay versus
Yes,
deaf
developmental
blind
delay is
versus
another one. Yeah,
like
yeah.
other but
Right.
they were really, I think they wanted to just pick one, maybe? I can't
Yeah.
remember.
Well, I think that's interesting. The whenever you have developmental delay, is it true that that can be a little bit different than multiple disabilities, like as
Yes,
a category? Can you
yes.
have both of them at the same time? Do
You
know?
can, but typically a developmental delay is used for those kiddos who are either going to catch up with themselves as the prediction, or that delay is just might be caused by something else, but it's not as overarching as a multiple diagnoses.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so another thing I just heard recently that I thought was really powerful was many of our parents are so fearful, not as much our parents with kids who have vision loss, but in my other worlds when I've worked with other families, they didn't want their kid to be labeled
Yes.
as developmental delayed or multiply handicapped, which I just absolutely hate that term. But
yeah.
I just heard this speaker say that, labels should be on, labels should be on containers, not on children.
Absolutely.
If we could move away from calling them labels and calling them a diagnosis, it would take away that stigma of this is what my child has and this is what my child needs. So I thought that was
That's
really
good.
powerful, and I'm trying really hard to change my brain to think of it that way too.
Yeah, I think a lot of that plays into mainstreaming that with, for me, I have a 14-year-old daughter, and making sure that she's educating her friends about her brother that has all these needs, that he's not any different from her or his other brother. And, to ask questions. I tell her, let them ask you questions, and you educate them to the best. And if there are things that you can't answer, then come to me, and if I can't answer it, we'll get them answers, and we'll find out for them. It was always a faux pas for those people to be like mainstream in the class and such. And I don't, so I try a lot to get Howie, my 14-year-old daughter, to just express that he's in love on him and all of that, just the same. And it's amazing how her friends are so receptive to him. They're not scared of him now, intimidated by him.
Right.
So it's amazing.
And I would
That's really
predict that you will see what I see at my age with children, probably your age. But so my older children, actually all of my children, had the opportunity to go to an inclusive preschool program, as not the sighted peer because they weren't blessed to come to VIPS. My grandchildren have all been here, but they had the opportunity, and that was very intentional. That was my profession. It was my husband's social justice piece, and it was something that we really pushed. And now those children who are adults and parents have their children coming to an inclusive program,
love that.
and nobody's afraid
Yes.
of your son and
Right.
your son.
Right.
It's just okay. So they're just a little. We'll just do this for them, and I'll do this for my child,
And I
and I'll do
noticed,
this
like,
for yours.
at that age, when they're so young, they don't even realize, I don't think that my sighted peer son, Kingston, really realizes that there is a whole lot different than all of his classmates.
Right.
They're
We-
just friends.
Yes,
in
they're
class.
and he loves to talk about him and come to VIPS and see him.
Yeah.
We have beautiful stories of our sighted peers getting to graduation and being shocked to learn their classmate was blind. You mean he can't see?
Yeah.
Or what does it mean to be blind? And it's like, we
Wow.
don't do a very good job. But it's so cool. And even my grandson
cool.
George talked about one of his friends in his classroom who last year was nonverbal, and he said, "Oh, that friend just likes to think his answers. He just doesn't always say them." And I thought, you know what? Thank you, Miss Stacy, because that's a
Yes.
beautiful way to explain. I know this little guy, he knows what he's telling us, but he just doesn't always say it. So, and that's to me what we are about. So that might have been a tangent there, Paige.
It was a good
Yeah, that was
tangent.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was good.
Are you guys ready for question number 5? All right. This one might be one you have a little bit more experience with. What is an IEP? Also, while they're writing their answers, the score is Sonnie has 2 points and Megan has 3 points. All right, Sonnie, let's hear from you.
Individualized education plan?
Yes,
I like
and
that.
Megan, I'll also see your answer too.
Yay.
Yes, it stands for Individualized Education Program. So, a point for Sonnie and a point for Megan.
Yeah, and you all both said plan. That used to be what we called it.
It's
Oh, now it's
It
a
is now
program?
program,
Yeah.
and I think
Oh.
I don't know when that was changed. I still have to remind myself we're no longer planning, we're programming. But I think it's to address more comprehensively that this is not just a plan. This is a legal document, and it is a program for these children that we have designed individually to meet their needs. So,
Nice.
Number 6. Many of you listeners and both of you contestants here know that sometimes if your child has been assessed by your school district, there comes a report after that, and that report has information about how your child did in the assessment. And there may be some times where you might disagree with the school district about your child's eligibility for special education services. So what can you do if you disagree with the school district about your child's eligibility for special ed services or the types of services that they receive? What can you do? Two marker clicks means you have an answer. All right, Megan, let's start with you.
Due process?
Due process and
I
Sonnie.
put fight.
Yeah,
All
that's pretty
right.
much it. That is it.
Yeah, we're gonna give both of you guys a point.
That's it.
I think my answer would be, because this is how my motherhood handled it, cry when I get upset. Sometimes I find myself ready to cry at meetings still. But I do want to make it very, 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 very clear. Our school systems are our friends, and the people who are running the show and running those meetings, they are our friends. I'm very proud of the relationship that VIPS has with school systems. We still have opportunities to educate school systems about IDEA, about the law, and that it applies to preschool as well as to our kindergarten through 12th grade as we go through transitions. But school systems do not want to displease a parent. They truly do not. There is that safety net by federal law that if there is a disagreement, first and foremost, never sign anything if you don't agree with the plan or the program that the school system is recommending for your student. And then there are very distinct steps that you would follow to file that due process. So, yeah, it's a safety net for us.
Question number 7. All right, this is more about all those safety nets. So, if you disagree with the results of a school's evaluation of your child, the school requests an IEE when they don't have the right experts to evaluate a specific issue a student might have. And you have the right to request that the school pays for an IEE. Whether or not the school ends up paying for the IEE, it still has to consider the results. But what is an IEE? All right, Sonnie, tell us what you have.
Well, I'm sure I'm incorrect. Individualized education evaluation?
All right, Megan, what do you have?
Independent educational evaluation?
The answer is an independent educational evaluation. The point
yeah,
goes to
see,
Megan.
She came in here all
Man,
nervous,
I was-
telling me she was nervous, and I'm like, I'm going to
You
fly
know.
with it. I'm making her look good.
You are, yeah. No.
Yes, and I think it's important to note that doesn't really happen very often again, it's another one of those safety nets that it's written into the law. School systems, I would say, most likely will be challenged to pay for your independent educational evaluation, but the key is they do have to consider the results of it, even if it comes out of pocket for a family. And also, if that is a route that you go, I also speak from personal experience that check your insurance if they'll cover it for you. My son had psychological testing for learning challenges. We were in a private school system, a parochial system, so we did have to pay for it. We could have come to the public schools for him to be evaluated, but it would have been too long of a wait to get to these other students. So anyway, we did the private route, and I was able to have it all covered by insurance. So make sure you always check your private insurance. If they do the psychological testing, it does fall under physical health as well as mental health.
So a typically developing child, if they're going to a Catholic school, you can get an independent evaluation
You can.
covered.
You also can go through the public school system to get an evaluation on that child if your student is going to the Catholic schools or a private school or whatever format of private or Christian school.
Good to
Yeah.
know. I think people
But
need
the
to know
key
that.
is apply early because you're on a wait list, and they have for the public school students, there are very distinct timelines that they have to meet for compliance. For students who are not enrolled in their system, they're graced with a lot more time. So I always feel like it's a physical putting another student on the bottom of the stack for evaluations. So I just always say to families, do it early or go the independent route. See if you can't find that psychologist as your VIPS director of education too, because we can recommend people to you, but that will give you, even if they just give you the forms to complete and submit to your insurance yourself. That's what we had to do, but it was covered on our insurance.
Okay, good to know.
Question number 8 is one that you can get multiple points. So Sonnie, you can come back ahead. So each child who receives special education services under Part C has the opportunity to explore transition to Part B services. Remember, Part C is birth to 3, and Part B is kindergarten through age 21. So I will award a point for each part of the transition from early intervention to preschool that you can name.
Go, Megan, go.
I'm adding one more thing. So I don't know. Okay, I put like initial transitional meeting, initial transitional meeting, ARC meeting, evaluation, eligibility meeting. Eligibility meeting, that was the big one at the end, right? Yeah. Do I get any points?
All right, I will award you.
How about 3?
I think that's
So your
That's
initial
fair.
meeting is one meeting,
Because I didn't
the
get
evaluation
it.
is another, and the ARC meeting and eligibility meeting are usually together.
Same thing.
So 1
Okay,
point.
all right, Miss Paige.
All right.
All right.
All right. So she gets 1, 2, 3. All right, Sonnie, what do you have?
I just had IEP meetings because I know I had 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 6 meetings.
Yeah.
A lot.
All right, a point for Sonnie.
No, I don't know that I get a point.
What?
Thank
An
you.
IEP
Totally get a
meeting,
point.
important.
very much so. So you had them listed there. The first meeting that you have, actually, when you're going from early intervention, birth to 3, into the public school preschools, there's one meeting that is first held by First Steps or the early intervention program, and that's really called your transition conference, where your service coordinator calls that meeting and is telling you all the options you have for age 3 for your child, for your student. And that's a First Steps meeting. That's not really it's an IDEA meeting because First Steps is covered in that, but it's not a school system meeting, although they are invited to that meeting too. So then, because we like to make things challenging, you get all that information and then you have to go home and wait, and then we have the initial referral. It's initial ARC meeting, initial referral meeting. ARC is the term we throw around in Kentucky, which stands for Admissions and Release Committee. This group of people are going to admit the child into special education, and then that takes another ARC meeting to release the child out of special education when these additional services are no longer needed. In Indiana, it's called an IEP meeting. They don't use that
This wasn't
technical
like, I
government
don't
term.
really
Give her
remember.
another.
I
She
don't
didn't really have
remember
a hard
hearing
thing,
any
so
of these.
yeah,
And that's the
yeah.
difference with me and being blessed that we are so close, being Indiana residents
Yes,
and being
yes.
so close to,
Right.
VIPS here.
Absolutely.
Now that VIPS isn't in Indiana,
Right.
but it's in Indianapolis.
Yes.
That is not feasible
Right,
for someone that
for
lives.
the, right.
So yeah, so it was a little different. My transition
Mhm.
from first steps
Uh-huh.
into the school system
Yes.
was a little.
It wasn't, and
it
the meetings
were
were
different.
very different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they were very well organized, but there were just differences,
Yes.
is the best way to put it.
Yes.
Just with how the reports were given, how the evaluation was completed first. And
Yes.
So, yeah, very different.
So that's
And-
when you were talking about it, I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I felt like I kind of knew what was going on, but
Yeah.
maybe I
You
didn't.
did.
You
were
no,
good.
you did good.
Yes. And then after you've now given permission and talked about the areas of needs in conversation and the school system's filling out all that referral information paperwork, then you do the assessment, which is considered another meeting where you go and your student, your child, receives that evaluation. And then the final one is the eligibility ARC in Kentucky,
Yeah.
the IEP meeting, eligibility IEP meeting in Indiana. So.
You guys ready for question number 9? I think you're both doing really well. You're being really good sports, so. So let's talk a little bit more about meetings. I know a lot of families talk about their anxiety for where their child's going to go to school and what's going to happen at that last meeting, that eligibility ARC meeting. So I'll give you 1 point for each thing you can name that happens at an eligibility ARC meeting. So there's lots of things that happen in those meetings. So if you remember anything from your own child's eligibility ARC meeting about what happened, feel free to list it. And
Make them give you correct answers.
Okay.
And I'll give mine
Okay.
correct answers.
So I remember them reviewing all of the report, the assessment results. I remember talking a lot about what category he was going to fall into. Was that in that last meeting? Yeah. The
that was
eligibility
in
meeting.
that
Yeah.
meeting. Yep.
And then a lot of talk about the placement, so what school options we had,
Mm-hmm.
and then the goals on the E IEP.
All right. So here's your points. She gets 4 points. 1,
Cool.
2,
Good,
3, 4. All right, Sonnie, what do you have?
I have services that he qualified for. So yes, going over, his evaluation and all
That's
that because
right.
Indiana does that first.
Mhm.
And then we went over, how they will place Castleman. Will he be in groups or will he get individual services? Because Castleman
Mhm.
qualifies for all of them. And so just differentiating, what his specific need was and then what our main goals for the year were.
Awesome.
Nailed it.
Yeah, you guys both nailed it.
You are
Yes.
good.
I think that's what
Good
we
memories.
did.
That's what we did.
So there are a couple of things that you left out that you wouldn't really even think are required by law. But first of all, believe it or not, introductions are considered part of your meeting to find out who is in the meeting with you. And then the main reason for that is so that the parents can say, I don't want that person in the meeting. They don't have my permission to be here. And we find ourselves, it kind of makes me chuckle when we're in a meeting and they'll look at the parent and say, do you want FIPS here? And they're like, yes, we need FIPS here.
So Indiana, we
So-
signed off. I had to sign off prior to the meeting. They sent me a
Yeah.
list of
Yeah.
everybody that was going to
Absolutely.
attend
Mhm.
and their
Right.
contact and their purpose.
Right.
And then I had to sign
Right.
those people. And then there was an additional spot to where I was able to add you
Yes.
and say, I want this person
Yes.
added
Right.
to our meeting.
Exactly.
And then it took place. They did introduce themselves.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's all part of that
Yeah.
introduction piece
Okay.
of it. And then at every meeting, you are offered in writing parent rights. And then you can also ask for them to be reviewed verbally if you would like them. Most parents say, please do not. No, because they are the same rights that you had at the initial meeting where they talked to you about the rights for evaluation, the rights for free and appropriate education, all these terms that Paige had us go through today, and then also tell you about due process if you're not happy with how the meeting goes. They should always be offered to you in writing, though, for every meeting you go. I always picture somebody wallpapering a bathroom or something with all the parent rights that we receive through the years. So, and then they go through the assessment reports, and it's just to tell you what they found out about your child and ask you, does this sound like your child? What other things would you like to add? And then from there, they'll talk about eligibility, review all the forms. This is what we need to say in place for vision. This is what we need to say for a developmental delay. This is what we need to say for an orthopedic impairment. And then you take all that information and have that discussion about all those different categories. And then they usually have a draft IEP for you to show you that individualized education program, mainly to save you time and hair pulling through a meeting, because it does take quite some time. If you ever see it and it doesn't have the word draft written on it, you should stop your meeting immediately, because they've already written an IEP before they have parent input. But the draft IEP can be changed, and I've never been in a meeting where they haven't been changed. Those goals are reviewed, and then when you look at the program that you have for the child or for the student, then you say, where can we deliver these services the best, that's the most appropriate for this student, for their learning style, for their learning needs. So those are all those parts, and they check, make sure they are hitting them all.
And one thing I would like to add as well, this is not necessarily a part of the meeting, but I myself am a spatial learner. I need to see all of the pieces and the parts. Sometimes I have found that in IEP meetings or in ARC meetings, they'll just read the goals off or read the things off, and sometimes you just shake your head because you've been in there for a really long time. And it's like, okay. But you can ask to be able to see that copy, and sometimes it can help center you a little bit more, so you don't feel like you're just listening to like words and words and words.
Yes.
So that's something I always like to share with families.
And that can be, so the assessment reports that you have for your child, you have a right to see them before the meeting too if you request. And I'm sure that you're told that you have, it's in the parents' rights, but it's probably gone over so quickly that families don't always realize that. And we have most of our meetings via Zoom these days still, but you can share that screen, and as Paige said, it helps me attend better when I can see that. But I also keep a list, and I'm making sure that parent rights are addressed every time we have a meeting. I've had one meeting where I said, I think we forgot parent rights, and I think they forgot it. I don't think that they were intentionally keeping parents in the dark.
Yeah, I definitely encourage people, anyone who's going through this process, to reach out and ask for the assessment beforehand, so that you're not hearing all of this information with a bunch of people staring at you, or just have time to talk to your partner about it, or just really let the information sink in so that you have questions ready. Because if I had just had to hear all of that while a bunch of people are staring at me on a computer, that would have been a little more difficult. So even if you feel like you're being annoying or anything, please reach out and get that report, because that will help.
And I think that's even more important with having meetings virtually instead of in person. I miss being in person with families when they're hearing some difficult news sometimes that, I can reach over and pat an arm or say, do you understand what they're saying? Do you want them to explain it again? Sometimes parents just really rely on that, and that's one of the things you can't really do very smoothly via Zoom. So I really do recommend seeing those assessment reports prior to a meeting.
That being said, I reminded myself that whole time in that meeting, like when that was going on, and I felt like all this was coming at me.
Yeah.
And like you said, the school is there to support you, but they are a team,
They are.
and there's 7 of them and one
One
of
of
you.
you.
And it's
Yeah.
like, and they're specialized in it. They've studied it. They have educations in it, and I don't.
Right.
I reminded myself I can go back anytime and make changes.
Yes.
Anytime I
Yes.
want to, I can go back and make
Yes.
changes. And if I
Yes.
have questions, I can call anytime.
Right.
Don't be apprehensive to do that, to reach out and say, now that I've processed this and stuff, I have a question about A, B, and C.
Yes.
Can we change this? You have that
Absolutely.
right at any time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think it's good that you think of yourself, and every family should think of themselves as a part of the team. You may not have a degree in whatever it is, but you have a PhD in your own child, and you
Absolutely.
are part of the team just as much as everybody else is. So
And truly
think
the
of yourself that
expert
way.
on that
your
child.
Yes.
Yeah.
the last question of our game show. So now it's really your time to shine.
Oh, goodness.
What is one idea or new learning that you would like to take away from the Feeling This Life Great IDEA game show? What have you learned today, or what do you want other people to know about IDEA?
I'll go first.
All right. While
I
they
think
write their answers.
I think that it's important to note that IDEA has not been updated, are you ready? For 22 years.
Oh. Wow.
And as of today, early intervention is not even included in IDEA as called by early intervention, the birth to 3. So there is a lot of initiative, and VIPS is extremely involved, and I love this stuff. It's extremely involved in working with groups within the Office of Special Education and Programming, which is the federal office or Department of Education, to get early intervention, birth to 3. Name it, as a service that is provided through IDEA. But 22 years. Think what you were doing 22 years ago, and that's when IDEA was last updated. So.
All right, Sonnie, do you want to tell us
Sure.
what
I
your
learned a
takeaways
whole
are?
lot, obviously, because that was graciously given extra points. You know, I also learned that this IDEA, it's for us. It's for us and as parents and advocates for our children. And I also learned how blessed I am to have VIPS here and to be surrounded by Cathy and Paige with all this knowledge, and that will go to bat with you and your family and do due diligence for your kids. And that's what it's all about. So I thank you too very much for what you do for
Thank
us.
you. Very good.
Oh, yeah.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Good thoughts.
And I have to say, stirring the pot is one of the favorite parts of my job.
Love
Ask me to go to a meeting with you.
Yeah, to kind of piggyback off what Sonnie said. Actually, Sonnie, I don't think you remember this, but we were in the hallway a couple of years ago in the 2-year-old classroom last year, actually. Yeah, and I was about to go through this whole process of transitioning into preschool, and you said you are your child's biggest advocate. You need to speak up, and you need to be the one to say if you don't agree with something or if you have questions. And I was like, wow, she's right. I got in my car. I was like, I can do this. And I was Miss Paige and my whole First Steps team. I had a wonderful First Steps team, and I would just encourage anyone out there to lean on them, ask them questions, ask for their help in preparing for this process, and you can do it.
Nice. Very nice.
I'm going to ding the bell writer 2 times to give, whoop, there goes each of you all a point. All right, you guys ready to hear the final score? Sonnie has 10 points and Megan has 14 points. So Megan, you are our winner today. You
Uno
win
cards.
the accessible Uno cards.
Thank you.
There you go. We will be sending a link to both of you as another prize of the full IDEA statute. So that's your other prize for being here today.
There we
Some
go.
wallpaper in the back.
Yeah. And to an article with IDEA terms to know from understood.org as your prize for playing. And this link is also going to be posted in the show notes. And I thank you all so much for being here and playing on the great IDEA game show. Thank you all.
Yay, thank you.
Thank you, Paige.
Thank you so much for listening to Feeling This Life. Please consider subscribing to Feeling This Life wherever you get your podcasts. And please take a minute or 2 to give us your feedback and your ideas for future episodes by completing our survey, which is linked in the show notes. There, you'll also find ways to get in contact with us, and you'll find resources related to today's episode. Please join us again next time for another episode of Feeling This Life.